In today's video, I want to talk to you about 6 things that might be ruining your videos and diminishing all of your efforts you're putting in to create your pieces of content. So let's talk about these few things and hopefully you guys can avoid doing them in the future. I want to say a quick thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video and allowing me to create the content that I do, but a little bit more on that later. Let's get into these 6 things so we can make sure that none of you guys are going to be doing them in your videos. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is not stripping your video down enough and refining it. So often I'll see some really great videos that have so much potential to be awesome, but they just haven't had enough passes made. And there's too much fluff in there. They haven't been cut down to the bare essentials, the cream of the crop footage. And for that reason, they just aren't quite as good as they could be. So my suggestion is that once you have your rough cut, it's a good idea to do multiple passes over that, cutting out everything that you feel is not absolutely essential to that final edit. Ideally, when you are done with that video, you should be left with only the absolute best shots and your favorite ones from that shoot, and anything else that's in there you can remove. I might start editing a video and my first rough cut might end up being 10 minutes long, for example. After that, I'll go through it a few more times, take everything out that I don't need. Maybe my second pass, it's gonna be about 7 minutes. After that, I'll do another pass and my final video might end up being only 5 minutes. That's half of what my first original cut was. Something that's really tricky about cutting out clips, and I struggle with this myself as well, so don't worry, but you know what went into creating that clip behind the scenes. Say for instance, you walked really far down there or climbed on top of a rock to get this really beautiful establishing shot. You put so much effort into creating that shot, and when you're putting your edit together, maybe it doesn't work quite as well as you had originally planned, but you put it in anyway because you put so much effort into getting it that you have to include that shot. Otherwise, all of that effort was wasted. I totally get where you're coming from and I struggle with this, but the thing is the viewer and the person watching that video has no idea how much effort you put into creating that clip, and frankly, nor do they really care. It's important to just look at your video as someone who would be watching it and digesting it, and make sure that even if you're really attached to that clip and you put a lot of effort into it, if it doesn't benefit your video and make it a better piece of content, get rid of it, cut it out. Your video is gonna be better and the viewer is gonna enjoy it more. So you'll thank yourself later. You won't remember the effort you put in, but when you go back to watch your video, it will be as best as it possibly could be. The next thing that I wanna talk to you guys about is something that I see way too often, and that is using LUTs in the wrong way. Now don't get me wrong, LUTs are absolutely amazing and I love them, but the problem is that people are often using LUTs in a way to color correct their footage and introduce the contrast and saturation that their footage was lacking in the beginning. This especially applies when people are shooting in flatter picture profiles and their footage straight out of camera is super desaturated, it doesn't have any contrast in it, and what people are doing is adding this LUT on, pumping the intensity way up to introduce all that contrast and saturation back into their image, and this is actually the wrong way to do it. What you should be doing is color correcting your footage first and getting all that contrast and saturation back into that clip, then adding your LUT on as a stylistic thing afterwards. But it's important to not put it on beforehand. What this does is actually ends up in your footage looking weird, the color reproduction isn't as accurate as it could be, and it often results in like a washed out weird image where your blacks aren't really black and your whites aren't really white, and it just all kind of looks a bit muddy and not that nice, in my opinion. If you guys like that look and that's something that you're after, do it. Furthermore, if you guys are shooting in something like a log profile, there's actually something called utility LUTs that you can get from your camera manufacturer that you can add onto that log footage to bring it back to something like Rec 709, where it's gonna be the most true colors and the contrast and the saturation and everything is gonna be reintroduced into that footage. Then you would put your LUT on afterwards. That's why in a lot of editing software like Premiere Pro, you'll see there's actually 2 places where you can add LUTs. The first one in basic correction is actually to add a utility LUT, and that is to rectify that log footage or any picture profile footage that you were shooting in back to standard footage. Then the one in the creative tab, which is exactly what it is it's a creative preference, that one you add on your stylistic LUT to bring that footage into the flavor that you wanted and the style that you guys are after. So this next one I'm going to talk about is a really interesting and a pretty fun one. And that is adding in all the extra little flavors and spice, those final touches to bring your video to life. And often the thing that I see is all of those extra little details and those final add-ons are what separates the kind of like good video from those really awesome videos. So it's important that you guys take a little bit extra time to really bring that video to life as much as it possibly can be. And the things that I'm talking about are things like color grading, sound effects, adding keyframe motions into your clips to have like zoom in and zoom out, any motion graphics, any overlays like sun flares or lens flares. All of these things are really gonna elevate that and just bring that extra spice into that video, making it its full potential and making sure that you guys are getting the most out of that footage that you worked so hard to capture. I often see people's videos and they have so much potential, but they just aren't quite finished yet. That's something really important, and it's also one of the most fun steps about editing videos. This actually leads perfectly into the sponsor of today's video, which is Storyblocks. Storyblocks is an online stock website with over 1 million assets. So if you guys are wondering where you can get all of those sound effects from, those motion graphics, overlays, or just stock footage, of course, Storyblocks is gonna have all of that covered for you guys. The best part about Storyblocks is when you sign up for that monthly subscription, you pay one small monthly fee and you get unlimited downloads. So you can use as many of these assets on your videos as you can possibly imagine to bring them to the next level, all for that one small monthly subscription. So if you guys haven't already, head over to storyblocks.com and sign up. I will leave it down in the description, as it is truly an amazing platform for creators like you and I, and one that we can all benefit from. The fourth thing that I want to talk to you guys about is using the wrong frame rates in your videos. And this one's a little bit tricky for me to demonstrate to you guys because this video is in 24 frames per second and I can't change it. I can't have different sections in different frames, so I can't demonstrate to you what the wrong thing would really look like. But I just want to say that you need to make sure that you're rendering out your footage at 24 frames per second always. So whether you guys are shooting in 60p or 120p, whether you are slowing it down or conforming it to a 24p timeline, whatever the case may be, the most important thing is that you guys are going to be rendering out that final video in 24 frames per second only. The thing about having a video in something like 60 frames per second is that it gives a really weird look to the video, and it's too smooth, and as weird as it sounds, it's almost too realistic. It gives that effect of like an old handy cam or something like that, and it doesn't add to that cinematic look at all. Regardless of your resolution and regardless of whatever frame rate you filmed in on your camera originally, always that final product needs to be in 24 frames per second. The fifth thing I want to talk to you guys about is adding way too many of those cheesy transitions and overdone effects on your videos. And before I get destroyed in the comments, there are a lot of really talented creators doing things that I could never do with some of these transitions and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when people have a very subpar video and they paste on a whole lot of zooms and whooshes to try and mask very average cinematography. It doesn't do anything for that video, it cheapens it and it makes it look really bad in my opinion. What you rather want to focus on is actually the shots that you're getting and the actual cinematography behind all of these add-ons and these effects. Have you ever seen a really big brand using a video with all these like pasted on zooms and luma fades and all of that? No, you most likely haven't, because they're not really going to want to use it. By not focusing on all of that, you're going to put more effort into the actual video that you guys are creating and the real cuts between those shots and everything like that. And that's going to do much more for you in the long run. So the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about today is spending too much time actually learning how to make videos and not enough time actually creating videos and actually doing it. The problem is that it's easy for people to spend hours and hours and hours online on YouTube watching videos even like this one, figuring out all of the techniques and the different ways of doing things. but you can only go so far with that. And there comes a time where you actually have to head out and actually start creating videos and actually doing it for yourself in the real world to learn things. And you're gonna end up learning really quickly when you're doing it out in the real world for yourself. There's definitely nothing wrong with learning all of this useful information online and letting someone else figure it out the hard way and then you just taking that knowledge and applying it. What I'm saying is that sometimes people get stuck in this thing where they're just learning all this stuff and they're not actually spending enough time putting it into practice and creating things. At the end of the day, creating videos and making content is actually quite hard. Realistically, the only way that you're really going to get better at it is by doing it and doing it often and repeating that process. You need to head out, you need to create something, you need to come back and edit it, you need to analyze what's wrong with it, then you need to go learn some more stuff on YouTube or wherever it is that you might be learning. Then you need to go create again and improve a little bit, and you need to repeat that process over and over and over for a bunch of years to get your stuff up to the standard that you can see in your mind and the quality of content that you are gonna be really stoked with. Something that I did when I was first starting out with videos is I created daily vlogs for, I think it was around 2 months, purely just so that I could do that repeating process over and over again. And I learned so much in those 2 months, creating 60 videos and repeating that process. I learned a ton, and it was probably one of the most significant growth spikes that I've had in my filmmaking career. So let's do this. I have a challenge to you guys, and don't just listen to this challenge and not do it. You specifically watching this video right now, I'm talking to you. If you are someone that has wanted to start getting into creating videos and shooting content, but you kind of haven't really started because you're just kind of learning and figuring out how to do it, or maybe you're someone that already creates content, but you haven't been creating very often, you make a video here and there, but you spend most of your time on YouTube learning how to make videos and how to make the best things. This is the challenge for you. Go out today and shoot something. It doesn't matter what it is. Just head out and create something in the real world with some of the tips that you've learned on YouTube, maybe some of the tips from this video, some of my other videos, some other awesome creative people's videos. Any of the tips that you guys have been learning and all that new knowledge that you have in your head, go and put it into practice and see how it all works out. I hope that some of you guys actually do this. Let me know in the comments if any of you actually did go ahead out, especially if it's someone who hasn't actually started their filmmaking journey yet and this was the motivation that you guys needed to get out there and create something. Let me know, because that would be so awesome, even if it's just one of you. You have to cover a certain amount of ground for that video to get to what you want it to be. So you might as well start covering that ground and creating things and repeating that process. That's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope that some of these tips can avoid you from making some of these problems. Remember to go and check out Storyblocks. They're gonna be linked down in the description. They truly are an amazing platform. They have so many assets for us filmmakers to use, and their small monthly fee for that subscription is a total deal. So go and check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in next week's video. Peace.